A desperate father with only $3.17 left in his bank account pulled a dying woman from a wrecked Mercedes in the middle of a blinding winter storm. He thought he was simply saving a stranger. He thought he was doing what any decent man would do when a life was fading in front of him. He had no idea that the woman shivering in his arms was Evelyn Hayes, the ruthless billionaire CEO whose company had quietly signed the papers that would soon destroy his home, his neighborhood, and possibly the last hope his sick little daughter had left. The wind howled off Lake Michigan like something ancient and angry, tearing across Interstate 55 with such force that Liam Harding's rusted 2011 Chevy Tahoe trembled under his hands. Snow struck the windshield in thick white sheets. The headlights barely cut 10 feet ahead. Somewhere beneath the static, the radio dispatcher kept repeating the same warning. All non-emergency vehicles were to clear the roads immediately. Chicago had declared a state of emergency. A historic bomb cyclone had swallowed the city 2 days before Christmas, closing schools, grounding flights, shutting down buses, and turning the highways into frozen graveyards of abandoned cars. But Liam Harding could not go home. Not yet. He was 32 years old, with a tired face, cracked knuckles, and the kind of eyes that had learned to count every dollar before trusting any dream. He worked nights at a logistics warehouse in Joliet, loading freight into trucks he would never own for companies whose names he never saw clearly because his breath was always fogging in the cold. Missing a shift meant losing pay. Losing pay meant rent would fall behind again. And falling behind again meant the eviction notice on his kitchen counter would stop being paper and become real men at the door. At home, his 7-year-old daughter, Maya, was with Mrs. Higgins, the elderly neighbor who watched her for almost nothing, because she remembered what it was like to raise children with more love than money. Maya had cystic fibrosis. She was small for her age, pale in winter, with dark curls that clung to her cheeks when she coughed too hard. Her latest prescription, the one that helped keep her lungs clear enough to sleep through the night, had just been denied by insurance. The out-of-pocket cost was more than Liam made in a month. Liam had spent the morning on hold, listening to cheerful music while a machine told him his call was important. Then a polite woman with a flat voice told him there was nothing else they could do. He thanked her because anger would not buy medicine. He hung up because crying would scare Maya. And when his daughter asked, "Daddy, am I getting worse?" he knelt in front of her, held both her hands, and lied with the gentlest smile he had left. "No, baby. We're just going through a hard patch." Now, as his Tahoe crawled through the whiteout, the heater coughed weak air against his boots, and Liam's mind ran the terrible math of survival. Rent, electricity, medicine, gas, food, Christmas. He had bought Maya a second-hand sketchbook from a thrift store and hidden it behind the cereal box. That was all he could afford. No dollhouse, no bike, no big glowing tree, just a sketchbook, 2 pencils, and a promise that someday things would be better. He was thinking about that promise when a flash of black metal appeared beyond the guardrail. At first it looked like a shadow moving inside the storm. Then the headlights caught the chrome edge of a wheel. Liam slammed the brakes. The Tahoe fishtailed across the ice, skidding sideways before crashing into a snowbank with a dull, heavy thud. For one breath, he sat frozen, gripping the wheel. Then he saw it. Down in the steep ravine beside the highway, half buried beneath whipping snow, a black Mercedes G-Wagon had smashed nose first into an oak tree. The front end was crushed inward. Steam rose from the engine and vanished into the storm. The driver's side was buckled so badly it looked folded. No hazards, no movement, no siren, just the awful silence of something gone wrong where no one was supposed to see it. Liam looked at the clock on his dashboard. If he stopped, he would miss his shift. If he missed his shift, he might lose the job. If he lost the job, Maya lost everything. He closed his eyes for half a second. Then he saw his daughter's face. He shoved the door open. The wind hit him so hard it stole the air from his lungs. "Hey!" he shouted, but the storm swallowed his voice. He stumbled down the embankment, slipping in knee-deep snow, his cheap boots soaking through almost instantly. Ice cut his cheeks. His hands went numb. As he reached the wreck, he saw the tire tracks carved wildly across the shoulder. They were not clean. They were not accidental. Another vehicle had forced this SUV off the road. Liam understood enough to know this was no simple crash. He yanked the driver's door, but it would not move. "Miss, can you hear me?" No answer. He grabbed a rock from the frozen ground and smashed what remained of the window. Glass burst inward. He cleared the jagged edges with his gloved hands, cutting himself anyway. Inside, slumped over the deflated airbag, was a woman in a dark wool coat. Blood ran from a gash on her forehead and had already begun to freeze near her temple. Her skin was turning blue. Her lips trembled without sound. Liam pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Faint pulse. Too faint. "No. No. No," he whispered. "Stay with me." He unbuckled her seatbelt, reached through the broken window, and pulled. She was dead weight. The cold had stolen her strength. For a moment, his lower back screamed and his knees almost buckled. "Come on," he grunted, dragging her out carefully. "I've got you. I've got you." The wind roared harder, as if offended by mercy. Liam lifted her over his shoulder and began climbing. Every step up the ravine felt impossible. Snow collapsed under him. Ice slid beneath his boots. His lungs burned. Halfway up, he slipped and crashed to one knee, shielding her head with his arm. Pain shot through his leg. He almost dropped her. He looked at the highway above, at the Tahoe barely visible in the storm, and thought of Maya. "If that were my little girl," he told himself, "I would beg the world not to drive away." So he stood, step by step, shaking, bleeding, nearly blind. Liam carried the stranger back to the road. By the time he pushed her into the passenger seat and wrapped his work jacket around her, his own shirt was soaked with snow and sweat. He turned the heater as high as it would go, though it gave only a weak breath of warmth. "Hold on," he said, putting the Tahoe in drive. "Just hold on." Northwestern Memorial was impossible. The main roads were buried. Ambulances were overwhelmed. Dispatch was warning that plows had been pulled from several routes. Liam had one choice: his apartment, 3 miles away on the south side, where there was at least a radiator, blankets, and a first aid kit. It took 40 minutes to drive 3 miles. 40 minutes of sliding tires, dead traffic lights, and abandoned cars hunched beneath snow like forgotten animals. Beside him, the woman's breathing came shallow and thin. He kept talking to her because silence felt too much like surrender. "My name's Liam. I don't know if you can hear me. You're going to be okay. My daughter says I'm stubborn, and she's right. I don't let people quit on me." When he finally pulled into the crumbling parking lot of his apartment building on 47th Street, the snow was already halfway up his tires. He carried the stranger up 3 flights of concrete stairs, each one dimly lit, each landing smelling faintly of old pipes and bleach. His arms shook so badly he had to lean against the wall outside his door before kicking it open. "Daddy?" Maya's small voice came from the living room. She stood wrapped in a faded fleece blanket, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one missing button eye. Mrs. Higgins rose from the sofa, one hand flying to her mouth. "Good Lord, Liam, what happened?" "Crash on the interstate," Liam said, breathless. "No ambulances. I couldn't leave her." He carried the woman into his bedroom and laid her on the mattress, the only mattress in the apartment. "Mrs. Higgins, boil water. Maya, baby, bring Daddy the first aid kit from the bathroom." "Is she dead?" Maya whispered. Liam looked at the stranger's blue lips and then back at his daughter. "Not if we can help it." For the next 2 hours, Liam worked with a kind of desperate calm. He cleaned the woman's forehead, closed the deep cut with butterfly bandages, stripped off her wet gloves, layered her beneath every quilt he owned, filled bottles with hot water, and placed them near her feet and core. Mrs. Higgins kept muttering prayers under her breath. Maya sat in the hallway, watching with solemn eyes, coughing into her blanket whenever she tried to breathe too deeply. When Liam finally wiped the dried blood from the stranger's face, he saw her clearly for the first time. She was striking, maybe mid-30s, with sharp features, dark lashes, and the kind of skin that looked cared for by people who charged more than Liam's rent. Her coat was expensive. Her watch glittered with quiet arrogance. Even unconscious, she looked like she belonged to another world, one with glass elevators, private drivers, and rooms where men stood when she entered. Liam stared at her and whispered, "Who are you?" Then, after a pause, his gaze drifted to the frost crawling up his bedroom window. "And who wanted you dead?" Evelyn Hayes woke to the smell of cheap chicken broth and the sound of a radiator knocking inside a wall. She did not open her eyes immediately. Years of surviving boardrooms full of smiling predators had taught her to assess before reacting. Her head throbbed. Her throat burned. The sheets against her skin were scratchy, nothing like the imported cotton in her penthouse overlooking Lakeshore Drive. The room was small. Too small. The air smelled faintly of mildew, old wood, and antiseptic. Somewhere nearby, a child coughed, a deep, wet sound that made Evelyn's nerves tighten. Memory returned in violent pieces. The emergency board meeting, Donovan Trent's face across the long table, pale with rage after she confronted him about missing millions. His voice low. "You have no idea what you're destroying." Her answer colder. "No, Donovan. I know exactly what I'm destroying. You're fired." Then the storm. Her G-Wagon crawling through the empty road. Headlights in the rearview mirror. A black Escalade too close. The first impact. The guardrail spinning past. Snow. Metal. Dark. Evelyn's eyes snapped open. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain exploded behind her skull, and the room tilted. "Easy," a man's voice said from the doorway. "You've got a concussion." Evelyn turned too fast and winced. A tall man stood there holding a chipped mug. He had broad shoulders, tired brown eyes, and stubble along a jaw that looked like it had been clenched for years. His flannel shirt was faded. His jeans were patched at the knee. His hands were rough, with small cuts across the knuckles. Not an assassin, Evelyn thought. Not corporate security. Not police. But that did not make him safe. "Where am I?" she demanded. Her voice was hoarse, but the command in it was automatic. "Where is my phone? Did you take my things?" The man blinked, not offended so much as surprised that someone could wake up under his blankets and accuse him before thanking him. He set the mug on the nightstand. "You're in my apartment, South Side. Your car was wrecked in a ravine off I-55. The roads were shut down, so I couldn't get you to a hospital. Your coat and watch are on the chair. I didn't touch your pockets. I didn't find a phone." Evelyn's eyes cut to the chair. Her coat was folded neatly. Her watch sat beside it. Her shoes were lined up underneath. No purse. No phone. Donovan's people must have taken them, or they were lost in the wreck. She looked back at the man. He stood still, calm, but she noticed the exhaustion in him. Not laziness, not weakness. Exhaustion from carrying too much for too long. "Who are you?" she asked. "Liam Harding." He waited. "And you are?" Evelyn hesitated. If Donovan knew she had survived, he would finish what he started. Her board had emergency succession rules. Her absence could be used. Her death could be profitable. Her name was known in financial circles, but not everywhere. To a warehouse worker in a poor apartment building, perhaps she was just another woman in an expensive coat. "Eve," she said. "Just Eve." Liam studied her for a second. He knew a lie when he heard one, but he was too tired to chase it. "All right, Eve. Drink the broth. It's just bouillon, but it'll help warm you up." "Why didn't you call an ambulance?" "I tried. Lines were jammed, roads were blocked. You had maybe 20 minutes out there." His voice was not dramatic. That made it worse. "You were freezing to death." For the first time, Evelyn looked away. "Then thank you," she said stiffly, as if gratitude were a language she had learned from a phrase book. Before Liam could respond, Maya appeared behind him, peeking around his leg. She was small, pale, wrapped in a blanket, holding a worn, stuffed rabbit. Her curls were messy from sleep. Her eyes, large and dark, fixed on Evelyn's bandaged forehead. "Daddy said you got a big owie," Maya said. "Maya," Liam murmured softly. "She needs rest." But the girl stepped forward and held out the rabbit. "Mr. Bunn helps me when my lungs hurt. You can borrow him." Evelyn stared at the toy. It was old, grubby at the paws, missing one eye, loved almost beyond recognition. Evelyn Hayes had liquidated divisions with thousands of employees. She had outmaneuvered senators, bullied banks, crushed rivals, and built Hayes Global into a private equity empire that swallowed weak companies and polished profitable bones. She did not do children. She did not do softness. She did not borrow stuffed animals from sick little girls. Yet Maya stood there, arm extended, offering the most precious thing she owned to a stranger who had given her nothing. Something tightened in Evelyn's chest, small and unwelcome. Slowly, she reached out and took the rabbit. "Thank you, Maya," she said. "That is very generous." Maya smiled faintly, then coughed so hard her small body folded forward. Liam was beside her in an instant, hand on her back, voice low. "Breathe slow, baby. In through the nose. Good. Again." Evelyn watched him guide his daughter through the coughing fit with practiced gentleness. Not panic, not impatience. Love trained by fear. Over the next 24 hours, the blizzard kept them trapped inside. Evelyn, stripped of her phone, her office, her assistants, and the armor of being untouchable, watched Liam Harding's life from the edge of his borrowed bedroom. She saw what he tried to hide. She saw him give Maya the better food and pretend he was not hungry. She saw him pour the last of a liquid medication into a small plastic cup, hold the bottle to the light, and stare at the empty bottom like a man staring into a grave. She saw the way he checked the thermostat, then the windows, then his daughter's breathing, as if he could hold the whole building together by watching it closely enough. She saw him sleep on the sofa without complaint, using a coat as a pillow because his blankets were on her. She heard Mrs. Higgins whisper in the kitchen, "You can't keep doing this, Liam." And she heard his answer, "I don't have the luxury of stopping." That sentence stayed with Evelyn long after the apartment went quiet. She had said many ruthless things in her life. Necessary things, efficient things, shareholder things, but she had never said anything that honest. On the second night, after Liam had tucked Maya into bed and read 3 pages from an old library book until the child drifted into shallow sleep, Evelyn rose quietly. Her head was clearer. Her strength had returned enough for fear to become strategy. She needed a phone. She needed Reynolds, her security chief. She needed to know whether Donovan had moved. She stepped into the kitchen, cold linoleum beneath her feet. There was no landline, no charging dock, no office corner, just a small table, 2 mismatched chairs, a chipped mug, and a stack of mail weighted down by a salt shaker. Evelyn's eyes stopped on the red ink stamped across the top envelope. Final notice of foreclosure and eviction. She did not intend to read it. Then she saw the letterhead, Horizon Capital Properties, her company, her subsidiary, her signature, not literally at the bottom, but everywhere in the machinery that created it. Evelyn's hand went cold. 3 months earlier, she had approved the acquisition of several low-income housing blocks on the south side. She remembered the presentation. Failing buildings, high redevelopment potential, strategic proximity to the incoming tech corridor. She remembered her own voice, flat and decisive. Clear the site before spring. No delays, no exceptions. At the time, the tenants had been numbers, occupancy percentages, legal exposure, relocation costs. Now, one of those numbers had carried her bleeding body through a blizzard and placed hot water bottles at her feet. She picked up the notice with trembling fingers. Liam Harding had 7 days. 7 days before the apartment he could barely heat would be taken from him. 7 days before Maya, with her failing lungs and stuffed rabbit, would be pushed into a city that had no room for poor children to be fragile. Evelyn's eyes moved to the rest of the mail. A denied claim for Maya's medication. A past-due hospital bill. A utility disconnection warning. A handwritten note from the school nurse about missed appointments. Every envelope felt like an accusation. Every red stamp said the same thing. You did this. Looking for something? Evelyn spun around. Liam stood in the hallway, expression unreadable, shoulders squared in the dark. Shame struck her so hard she almost dropped the papers. I was looking for a phone, she said quickly. I need to call my family. Let them know I'm alive. Liam walked over and took the bills from her hand. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed quiet. That quiet was worse than shouting. I don't have a landline. Canceled it last month. My cell is charging by the TV. He placed the papers back in a drawer and closed it with care, as if putting humiliation away neatly could make it hurt less. I know it's not the Ritz, Eve, but you don't need to snoop through my life to figure out I'm broke. The walls already tell that story. Evelyn opened her mouth, but no polished answer came. Liam looked at her once, not with anger yet, but with the tired dignity of a man who had been seen too nakedly by someone who had no right. Then he walked back to the living room and lay down on the sofa. Evelyn stood alone in the kitchen. For the first time in her 36 years, the great Evelyn Hayes, the woman newspapers called ice-blooded, brilliant, merciless, felt something she could not negotiate away. Shame. Not embarrassment, not reputational risk. Shame. It pressed against her ribs until breathing hurt. She picked up Liam's phone with unsteady hands and dialed the secure number she knew by memory. Security. A gruff voice answered. Reynolds, she whispered. It's Hayes. Silence, then chaos behind the line. Ms. Hayes. My God, where are you? Alive. For now. Donovan tried to kill me. The board is moving in 6 hours. Trent is pushing interim authority. We thought, let him push. Evelyn's eyes remained fixed on the living room, where Liam slept curled beneath a threadbare quilt. Track this number. Send extraction to 47th Street at dawn. Bring police. Bring the state's attorney. And Reynolds? Yes, ma'am. Her voice lowered. Freeze every action connected to Horizon Capital's Southside evictions. Every notice. Every lockout. Every demolition order. Do it now. Understood. She hesitated, then added, and I need everything you can find on a man named Liam Harding. Not because he's a threat, because I owe him my life. Dawn broke over Chicago like a bruise fading beneath ice. The storm had finally exhausted itself, leaving behind 32 inches of snow and a silence so deep the city seemed ashamed of its own survival. Frost crawled up the inside of Liam's apartment windows. The radiator hissed weakly. Liam woke stiff and aching on the sofa, one arm numb beneath him, his back protesting every breath. For a moment, before memory arrived, he listened for Maya. The faint cough from her room told him she was still alive, still fighting, still here. Then blue and red lights swept across the ceiling. Liam sat up sharply. Engine noise vibrated through the floorboards. Heavy vehicles. Not plows, not neighbors. He crossed to the window and wiped frost away with his sleeve. In the parking lot below, 3 black armored Lincoln Navigators had pushed through the snow around his Tahoe. 2 Chicago police vehicles idled behind them. Men in tactical winter gear stepped out, scanning the building, their boots sinking into the drifts. Liam's stomach dropped. His first thought was eviction. It did not matter that the storm had just ended. It did not matter that Maya was sick. Men with papers always seemed to arrive early when poor people needed mercy to arrive first. A hard knock shook the apartment door. Liam turned toward the hallway, praying Maya would not wake up. He crossed the room and opened it. A mountain of a man stood outside, tactical vest under a charcoal overcoat, hand near his sidearm. Behind him stood Eve, except she was not Eve anymore. She wore the same torn, blood-stained coat, the same bandage on her forehead, the same bruises along one cheek. But everything else had changed. Her posture, her eyes, the air around her. The vulnerable stranger from his bed was gone. In her place stood a woman who looked as if skyscrapers lowered their voices when she entered. "Miss Hayes," the security chief said, not looking away from the hall. "Perimeter is secured. Vehicles are heated. We need to move you to Northwestern for trauma evaluation." Liam froze. Ms. Hayes. The name moved through his mind like a match falling into gasoline. Hayes. Hayes Global. Horizon Capital. The logo on the eviction notice. The stories he had heard from tenants' meetings. The billionaire who bought neighborhoods without ever walking their sidewalks. His eyes locked on her face. "Evelyn Hayes," he whispered. Evelyn stepped inside, and for the first time since he had pulled her from the wreck, Liam saw hesitation in her. "Liam, you're Evelyn Hayes." His voice was quiet, but it shook with something stronger than rage. "You own Horizon Capital." The security chief shifted, sensing danger. Evelyn lifted one hand, stopping him. "Yes." One honest word. It landed harder than any lie. Liam let out a humorless breath. "I carried you into my home. You saved my life. I gave you my bed. Yes. My daughter gave you her rabbit." Evelyn's eyes flickered. "Yes." Liam stepped closer. "And you were the one throwing us out." The hallway behind her seemed to go still. Evelyn reached into her coat and pulled out a sleek black checkbook. "I am not going to insult you with a speech," she said, voice controlled but softer than before. "You are right. My company owns Horizon Capital. I signed off on a development strategy that affected this building. I did not know your name then. I should have. That ignorance is not innocence." She wrote quickly, tore out the check, and held it toward him. "This is $250,000. It will clear today. Take Maya to the hospital. Pay your debts. Move somewhere warm. Let me at least fix the immediate damage." Liam looked at the check, the number blurred in front of him. $250,000. His whole body understood what that meant before his pride could speak. Medicine, rent, heat, food, doctors, a bed where Maya could sleep without coughing from mold, a Christmas tree, a future. His hand almost moved. Then he looked at Evelyn's face, at the expensive coat, at the security outside, at the woman who could tear down lives and then offer money as if mercy were a transaction. Something in him hardened. "Save my daughter from you?" he asked. Evelyn's hand trembled slightly. "Liam, no." He slapped the check from her hand. It fluttered to the floor between them. The security chief stepped forward instantly, but Evelyn snapped. "Reynolds, don't!" Liam's voice rose, not wild, but wounded enough to cut. "You sit in a tower signing papers that destroy families you never meet. You call it redevelopment. You call it shareholder value. You call it a strategic acquisition, but down here it means a little girl with bad lungs asking where she's going to sleep. It means Mrs. Higgins packing photographs of her dead husband because your people say the building has to be empty. It means working men skipping meals while you build luxury apartments for people who think poverty is a view from a rooftop bar." Evelyn stood motionless. Each word struck something she had kept frozen for years. "And now," Liam continued, pointing at the check on the floor, "because you woke up under my roof, because you saw my bills, because my daughter was kind to you, you want to buy your conscience clean." His eyes shone, but no tears fell. "I don't want your blood money in my house. Get out." Reynolds looked ready to remove him by force. Evelyn stopped him again without looking. She bent slowly, picked up the check, and folded it in half. When she looked back at Liam, her face had changed, not softened exactly. Broken, perhaps, in some private place no one had reached before. "You're right," she said. Liam stared at her. He had expected denial, defense, anger, a billionaire's offended pride. Not that. "You're right," she repeated, "and I don't know how to apologize for something this large without making it smaller than it is." "Then don't. I won't." She turned toward the door. At the threshold she paused. "But I am going to fix it." Liam laughed bitterly. "People like you always say that after the damage is done." Evelyn looked back once. "Then watch what I do, not what I say." She left with her security team, her boots clicking against concrete stairs, the sound fading into the building's cold silence. Liam closed the door and leaned his forehead against it. Behind him, Maya's small voice came from the hallway. "Daddy, is the lady okay?" Liam shut his eyes. "I don't know, baby." Maya coughed, then whispered, "She still has Mr. Bunn?" Liam looked toward the bedroom. The stuffed rabbit was gone. For some reason, that hurt worst of all. Evelyn Hayes did not go to the hospital. She sat in the heated leather interior of the armored navigator while Chicago passed outside in white and gray fragments. Snowbanks towered against storefronts. Traffic lights blinked uselessly over empty intersections. People in heavy coats dug out cars they could barely afford to repair. For years, Evelyn had seen cities from above. Helicopter pads, boardroom windows, penthouse terraces. From that distance, hardship became pattern. Data. Opportunity. At street level, it had faces. Liam's face. Maya's cough. Mrs. Higgins' trembling hands. Reynolds sat across from her, jaw tight. "You need medical attention. Later. You have a concussion. I have a company about to be stolen by a man who tried to murder me. The hospital can document injuries for prosecution. The boardroom can document motive." Reynolds studied her. He had worked for Evelyn for 9 years. He had seen her fire executives without blinking. He had seen senators wait in her lobby. He had seen her win by becoming colder than everyone around her. But now there was something in her face he did not recognize. Not weakness. Purpose, perhaps, sharpened by guilt. "Willis Tower," she said. "Call the Cook County State's attorney. Tell them I have evidence of embezzlement, attempted murder, and corporate fraud, and get my general counsel on a secure line." By 9 in the morning, the executive boardroom on the 82nd floor was buzzing with nervous whispers. The storm had delayed half the city, but not ambition. Donovan Trent stood at the head of the mahogany table in a charcoal suit, his expression arranged into solemn grief. Behind him, a screen displayed Evelyn Hayes's portrait, beside the words, "Emergency Continuity Session." "Given Ms. Hayes' tragic disappearance during the storm," Donovan said, voice smooth and heavy with manufactured sorrow, "and given that authorities have been unable to locate her vehicle or confirm survival, we must act with stability. Hayes Global cannot drift during crisis. Our shareholders, employees, and partners need leadership." A board member near the end of the table dabbed her eyes. Another checked his phone. Some mourned Evelyn. Some feared the markets. Some calculated their position under Donovan. "I am prepared," Donovan continued, lowering his gaze as if burdened by sacrifice, "to serve as interim CEO until such time as Evelyn is found or legally presumed deceased." He paused perfectly. It is what she would have wanted. The heavy oak doors slammed open. The sound cracked across the boardroom like a gunshot. Every head turned. Evelyn Hayes stood in the doorway, blood still dried along the edge of her coat, white bandage stark against her forehead, bruises dark beneath one eye. She looked like a ghost dragged from the snow by sheer will. Donovan's face drained of color. His hand tightened on the back of a chair. "Evelyn," he breathed. "My God, you're alive." She walked in slowly. No limp. No theatrics. Just lethal calm. "You always were a terrible public speaker, Donovan." The room froze. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered her name like a prayer. Evelyn reached the table and threw a thick manila folder onto the polished wood. It struck with a heavy smack. "You tried to steal $52 million from the acquisitions fund," she said. "When internal audit got too close, you accelerated demolition and eviction schedules through Horizon Capital to bury the irregularities inside redevelopment costs. When I confronted you, you arranged to have my vehicle forced off Interstate 55 during a declared emergency." Donovan recovered enough to laugh, though it came out thin. "You have a head injury. You should be in a hospital, not making insane accusations." "I agree about the hospital," Evelyn said, "but the accusations are documented." She nodded toward the folder. "Bank transfers, shell companies, altered project timelines, messages between you and the contractor who rammed my vehicle, payment confirmation from an account your assistant was foolish enough to access from a Hayes Global device." Donovan looked toward the door. Two detectives stepped in behind Reynolds. The board erupted in whispers. "This is absurd," Donovan snapped. "She's unstable. Look at her." Evelyn's smile was small and cold. "For once, Donovan, you're right. I was unstable. I built a company that rewarded men like you for being profitable while being cruel. I called it discipline. I called it excellence. I ignored what our machinery did when it moved through neighborhoods too poor to hire lawyers we couldn't intimidate." Her voice shifted. Still controlled, but deeper now. Human. "Last night, one of the men our company marked for removal carried me out of a wreck in a blizzard. He had every reason to drive past. He had $3 in his bank account, a sick daughter, no heat worth mentioning, and an eviction notice from my own subsidiary waiting in his kitchen. He saved me anyway." The boardroom went silent. No one knew where to look. Evelyn let the silence sit. "That man showed more leadership in one frozen ravine than this company has shown in 3 fiscal years." Donovan lunged suddenly toward the side exit, but Reynolds moved first. The detectives caught Donovan before he made it 6 feet. Steel cuffs clicked around his wrists. "You can't do this," Donovan shouted as they dragged him back. "I built half your expansion strategy." Evelyn looked at him without flinching. "And you nearly buried your theft under families' lives." Donovan's eyes burned. "You signed those orders too." The room stilled again. This time, Evelyn did not deflect. "Yes," she said. "I did." The admission landed like a second explosion. She turned to the board. "Horizon Capital's Southside eviction program is terminated immediately. All pending lockouts are frozen. All demolition permits are withdrawn. Legal will establish a restitution fund before noon, not a charity campaign. Restitution. We will convert the 47th Street property into a tenant cooperative, fund emergency repairs, and review every displacement action Horizon has executed in the last 18 months. A board member cleared his throat. "Evelyn, that could expose us to substantial liability." Evelyn turned her bandaged face toward him. "Good." He blinked. "Good?" "Yes. Liability is what people call consequences when they have lawyers." No one spoke. Evelyn placed both hands on the table. Her head throbbed. Her vision blurred at the edges, but her voice remained clear. "For years, this company has mistaken power for wisdom. That ends today. Anyone who believes cruelty is necessary for profit may resign before lunch." She looked at Donovan as the detectives pulled him toward the hall. "Start with him." As he disappeared through the doors, the entire boardroom remained silent. Not the polite silence of corporate attention, not the strategic silence of people waiting to speak. It was the silence of a room forced to see itself in a mirror it could not flatter. Evelyn closed her eyes for 1 second, and in the darkness behind them, she saw Liam standing in his doorway, rejecting the check. She saw Maya offering Mr. Bunn. She saw snow filling the ravine. She saw the life she had built and the lives it had crushed beneath it. When she opened her eyes, something in her had shifted. Not forgiven, not redeemed, not yet, but awake. 4 days later, the city began to thaw. The snow remained piled along curbs in dirty white walls, but the sun had returned, pale and forgiving over the south side. Liam sat at his kitchen table staring at a document delivered by certified courier. He had read it 3 times and still did not trust his eyes. The building on 47th Street had been purchased outright by Hayes Global and transferred into a newly formed tenant cooperative. Every resident would receive ownership shares. Emergency repairs were scheduled immediately: heat, windows, plumbing, mold removal, electrical. No rent increases for 5 years. No forced displacement. No demolition. He turned the page with numb fingers. There was a second packet beside it, a legal guarantee signed by executives, physicians, and a benefits administrator, funding Maya's medication and treatment for the next 18 years. An appointment at Lurie Children's Hospital had been scheduled with the chief of pediatric pulmonology, transportation included. Cost prepaid. Liam stared until the words blurred. Mrs. Higgins cried openly when he showed her. Maya did not understand the paperwork, but she understood the way adults breathed when a nightmare loosened its grip. "Does this mean we can stay?" she asked. Liam pulled her onto his lap and held her carefully, mindful of her ribs. "Yes, baby," he whispered. "We can stay." "And my medicine?" He swallowed hard. "You'll have it." Maya leaned against him. "Is it because of the snow lady?" Liam did not answer right away. He looked toward the bedroom where, on the pillow, Mr. Bunn had been returned that morning in a small white box with a handwritten note: "Thank you for lending me courage. E." Liam had read that note more times than the legal documents. A knock came at the door. Not hard, not official. Soft. Liam stood, his body suddenly tense. He opened it. Evelyn Hayes stood in the hallway alone. No security. No armored SUVs visible through the stairwell window. No tailored coat like armor. She wore a simple dark sweater, black trousers, and a winter scarf. The bruise on her cheek had faded to yellow. The bandage was gone, leaving a thin, healing line near her forehead. In her hands, she held nothing. That was the first thing Liam noticed. No check, no folder, no weapon made of paper. "I told you, I didn't want your charity," he said quietly. The venom was gone, but the wall remained. Evelyn nodded. "I remember. Then what is all this? Restitution. That's a corporate word." "Yes," she said, "but this time it is also the correct one." Liam stepped into the hallway, closing the door slightly behind him so Maya would not hear everything. Evelyn looked past him for only a second, then lowered her gaze. "I came to apologize without asking you to make me feel better." Liam's expression shifted despite himself. Most people apologized like they were handing over a bill. Evelyn continued. "You were right. I did not know your name. I did not know Maya's name. I did not know Mrs. Higgins, but I knew enough. I knew people lived here. I knew removing them quickly made the project more profitable. I allowed distance to become an excuse for cruelty." She took a breath. "That is on me." Liam leaned against the doorframe. "And now you fix one building and sleep better?" Evelyn shook her head. "No, I don't expect to sleep better for a long time." The hallway was quiet except for the old pipes ticking in the walls. Somewhere below, a child laughed as someone shoveled snow from the entrance. Liam studied her face, searching for the angle, the strategy, the hidden transaction. He had spent too many years being offered help with hooks in it. "Why are you really here?" he asked. Evelyn reached into her coat pocket slowly and pulled out a business card. Liam's shoulders tensed. She held it between two fingers, but did not push it at him. "My logistics director was tied to Donovan's fraud. He will be prosecuted. I need someone in that division who understands what supply chains look like from the floor, not the boardroom. Someone who knows what happens when decisions made upstairs land on workers downstairs. Someone who does not mistake fear for respect." Liam almost laughed. "You're offering me a job." "I am offering you an executive operations role with training, full benefits, a salary of $180,000 a year, and complete medical coverage for Maya. You would report directly to me for the first 6 months." Liam stared at her. "I load trucks. You also carried a dying stranger up an icy ravine because it was right. That doesn't qualify me for your world. Maybe that is exactly what qualifies you." He looked down at the card. Hayes Global, Operations Integrity Division. His name was not printed there, of course, but for the first time in years he could imagine a version of his life where his name belonged somewhere other than a bill. Still, pride pulled at him. Fear, too. "I don't want to be your redemption project." Evelyn's answer came quickly. "Then don't be." He looked up. "What?" "Be the man in the room who tells me when I am wrong." That silenced him. Evelyn's voice softened. "I have enough people who agree with me because they are paid to. I need someone who has already proven he won't." Behind the door, Maya coughed, then called, "Daddy? Is it Miss Eve?" Evelyn's face changed at the sound. Liam saw it. The guilt, yes, but also something warmer, something cautious and unfamiliar. He opened the door wider. Maya stood in the living room holding Mr. Bunn. "You brought him back," she said. Evelyn knelt slightly so she was closer to Maya's height. "He helped me very much." Maya smiled. "He does that." Evelyn swallowed. "I also wanted to say thank you." Maya tilted her head. "Daddy says thank you is good, but doing better is better." Liam closed his eyes for a second. Evelyn looked up at him. For the first time, there was no corporate answer ready. "Your daddy is right," she said. Maya considered this, then held out Mr. Bunn again. "You can hug him one more time if you need to." Evelyn looked at the rabbit, then at Liam. Something in the hallway seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, the billionaire CEO, who had once terrified entire boardrooms, accepted the stuffed animal from a sick little girl and held it against her chest. She did not cry dramatically. She did not collapse. But her eyes shone, and her voice, when she spoke, was barely above a whisper. "I think I did." Liam watched her and understood that forgiveness was not a door that opened all at once. Sometimes it was only a crack of light beneath it. Sometimes redemption did not arrive as a grand speech, but as a ruthless woman kneeling in a cold hallway, learning how to hold something fragile without owning it. He took the business card from her hand. "Monday," he said quietly. Evelyn looked up. "Monday? I'll come in Monday, but I'm not wearing a suit I can't afford." A faint smile touched her mouth. "Good. I don't trust men who look too comfortable in suits." For the first time, Liam almost smiled back. 3 months later, the lobby of Hayes Global looked nothing like the world Liam came from. Sunlight poured through glass walls 80 stories above Chicago. Marble floors reflected expensive shoes. Assistants moved with tablets. Executives spoke in polished fragments about risk, quarterly projections, and public perception. Liam stood near the entrance in a clean navy jacket Maya had helped him pick from a discount store, feeling every inch the warehouse worker among wolves. But he did not lower his eyes. He had promised himself that. Evelyn had kept her word. Maya's treatments had begun. The building repairs were underway. Mrs. Higgins had heat strong enough to complain about. Donovan Trent was awaiting trial. Horizon Capital's displacement projects were under investigation. And Liam, to his own disbelief, now sat in meetings where decisions were made before they became disasters. He did not always understand the language, but he understood consequences. That made him dangerous in rooms where people preferred abstraction. On that March morning, Evelyn had asked him to attend a board presentation. "Just listen," she had said. "Tell me what everyone else is avoiding." The presentation concerned a warehouse automation plan in 3 states. The consultants used clean slides and cleaner smiles. Efficiency, optimization, workforce transition, labor reduction. Liam listened, arms folded, while executives nodded. Then one consultant said, "The human impact is manageable." Liam raised his hand. The room turned toward him with varying degrees of patience. Evelyn leaned back silently. "What does manageable mean?" Liam asked. The consultant blinked. "Excuse me? You said the human impact is manageable. How many people lose jobs?" "Approximately 1,200 positions would be phased out over 18 months. And severance?" "Standard market package." "Retraining?" "Available through digital modules." Liam looked around the room. "So, a 56-year-old forklift operator with a bad back and no college degree gets a login password and a good luck email?" The room went quiet. The consultant's smile tightened. "That is a simplistic framing." Liam nodded once. "Good. Then make it less simple. Tell me their names." "Their names? Not all of them. Pick one. You're recommending the plan. You must have visited the warehouses." The consultant shuffled papers. "Our team reviewed operational data." "So, no." A few executives shifted uncomfortably. Liam's voice remained calm. "Before this company approves anything that removes 1,200 jobs, someone in this room should be able to describe one of the people being removed." The silence deepened. Evelyn watched from the head of the table, her expression unreadable. The old Evelyn might have saved the consultant. The new Evelyn let the room feel the weight. Finally, she spoke. "The plan is tabled." The consultant turned pale. "Ms. Hayes, the projected savings will be recalculated with full wage bridge, on-site retraining, health care protection, and community reinvestment." She looked at Liam. "And site visits." Liam nodded. The meeting ended 15 minutes later, not with applause, not with drama, but with something more powerful. Discomfort. The kind that begins change. As the executives filed out, Evelyn remained by the window. Liam approached slowly. "You know they're going to hate me." "Some already do." "Great." "But they listened." Liam looked out at the city below. "Listening isn't the same as caring." Evelyn stood beside him. "No, but it can be the first crack in the wall." He glanced at her. "You really believe people change?" Evelyn's eyes stayed on the skyline. "I have to." The answer was not sentimental. It was almost a confession. That evening, Liam returned home to find Maya sitting at the kitchen table with colored pencils spread around her. Her cheeks had more color now. Her cough still came, but less violently, less often. She held up a drawing. It showed a snowy road, a black car in a ditch, a man carrying a woman, and a small rabbit floating above them like an angel. "What do you call it?" Liam asked. Maya thought carefully. "The day Daddy didn't drive away." Liam's throat tightened. He knelt beside her and kissed the top of her head. "That's a good title." She looked up. "Did Miss Eve do better today?" Liam smiled faintly. "She tried." "Trying counts." "Sometimes." Maya went back to coloring. Liam looked around the apartment. New windows had been installed. The radiator worked. A small Christmas tree, months late but still loved, stood in the corner because Maya had insisted they deserved one even if the calendar had moved on. On one branch hung a handmade ornament shaped like Mr. Bunn. Liam thought about the ravine, the storm, the check on the floor, the boardroom he had never seen but somehow changed. He thought about how kindness did not erase harm, and apologies did not rebuild homes unless hands followed them. He thought about dignity, the quiet kind, the kind his daughter had taught him by sharing her rabbit, and the kind he had nearly lost when desperation told him to take any money and call it mercy. Sometimes the person you save is not innocent. Sometimes the stranger in the snow is carrying the signature that hurt you. Sometimes grace does not arrive clean. It arrives bleeding, guilty, and half-frozen, asking for a second chance it has not earned yet. But Liam Harding had learned that dignity was not weakness. It was not silence in the face of wrong. It was the strength to do right without selling your soul afterward. And Evelyn Hayes had learned that power without mercy is only another kind of poverty. Months later, people in that neighborhood would still talk about the morning the black SUVs came, and the day the eviction notices were canceled, and the sick little girl whose medicine finally arrived in a refrigerated box with her name printed correctly on the label. But Liam remembered something else most clearly. He remembered the moment in the storm when he could have kept driving. No cameras, no witnesses, no reward, just a wrecked car in a ravine, and a choice. That choice did not make him rich. It did not make him famous. It did something better. It proved that even when the world has taken almost everything from a man, it does not have to take his goodness. And sometimes when goodness stands its ground, even the coldest room, the tallest tower, and the hardest heart fall silent. In life, we are often tested not by what we gain, but by what we choose to give when nothing is expected in return. Liam Harding, a struggling single father, faced impossible odds: a sick daughter, eviction notices, and a winter storm that could have easily ended in tragedy. Yet, when confronted with a stranger in mortal danger, he made the choice to act, to carry a life through the snow, despite his own desperate circumstances. This story reminds us that true strength lies not in wealth, power, or recognition, but in the courage to uphold dignity, compassion, and integrity, even when the world offers no reward. Acts of kindness, no matter how small or inconvenient, ripple farther than we can imagine. They can transform lives, heal hearts, and even challenge the coldest systems to rethink themselves. Liam's unwavering moral compass forced change in a world built on profit over people, proving that goodness is a force that cannot be bought, only lived. Let this inspire you to stand firm in your values, to act with empathy, and to recognize that even in moments of personal struggle, the choice to do right matters more than the choice to stay comfortable. If this story moved you, leave a comment below, sharing a moment when you chose kindness over convenience. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that remind us of the power of courage, compassion, and integrity.